Stupid Norvaline would like to welcome you to Be Your Own Therapist with Miffi, Maxmillion. Miffi's, all I can say is amazing. She knows how to just transfer that east versus west. And always has a calming way of, I don't know how to describe it. You're just going to have to watch.
Well, thank you, Shayla, because that's actually that's one of the topics that I wanted to just bring up and start the discussion about today, of this kind of where we have almost like a cultural divide between East and West, and what we can do about it. So be your own therapist. Buddhist psychology, radically different from Western psychology. And it's taken me years to even just grasp at how fundamentally different it is. Because in the West, we normally start by looking at symptoms and calling them disorders and symptoms. And then we try and treat those symptoms. We try and make the symptoms go away. So if we've got anxiety, we try and make the anxiety go away. If we've got depression, we try and make the depression go away. Trauma, we try and make the trauma go away. But actually, this is like relieving a symptom. But because we're not treating the causes, it's like putting a Band-Aid on top of a festering wound. So it's putting the Band-Aid on will protect it in a bit. If we get knocked around, it'll give us a little bit of a buffer, but doesn't solve anything. And we have to keep putting more Band-Aids on or changing the Band-Aids. So Buddhist psychology looks at what is the cause. What's the cause of this response or these symptoms? And actually sees anxiety and depression not as a problem, but as a result, as a symptom. It's not the problem. And so just getting rid of the symptoms, taking more painkillers, it's a very short-term fix, but it doesn't actually fix us. And just like they say in the fine print, if pain persists, see your doctor. It's like even in the West, we know that it's not the solution. But it's a very entrenched kind of paradigm. So even when we talk about post-traumatic stress, so just recently in Australia, there's been some ads on TV about post-traumatic stress, because commonly it's called post-traumatic stress disorder. And there's a Veterans Association in Australia that is changing the term to post-traumatic stress response, because actually post-traumatic stress is not a disorder. It's a very authentic response to trauma. So it's a response. It's actually not disordered at all. It looks disordered, but it's a natural response. And so anxiety and depression are also a natural response to various forms of trauma. And in fact, here we are in samsara. Samsara is traumatic. We're all experiencing degrees of trauma from being in samsara. And that's why we act under the influence. So what's the cause of our trauma in samsara? It's being dominated by afflictive states of mind, by disturbing emotions, by distorted worldviews, by just not knowing, just confusion and befuddlement. All of this creates a traumatic response in us. And what do? We act out. So I like calling it much more a response than a disorder, because then it helps us get to the core of the matter. So what can we do? What we can do is small steps and start well. Start in a healthy way, so that it's, as we continue and things escalate, it's going to be good for us. So what I wanted to start the conversation about today is, well, how do we approach our Buddhist study? How do we even approach the study of Buddhism? Because we, especially if we've got an academic background, it can be really easy to mix it up and take an academic approach to our studies. But actually, we're studying for life. We're studying to transform our mind. So an academic approach isn't going to cut it. But, you know, no one really spells that out. and if you love study, you can actually really get caught out here. So me, I love studying things, but in a haphazard way. So I hate homework, but I love delving into books and things. So I've kind of put in both camps here. So, you know, if you find that you're getting tired with Buddhist study, or you're a bit burnt out, or you're a bit bored with the same old thing in the Lam Rim, or if you find even though you're studying really well, you're getting more impatient with people, your tolerance levels are kind of dissolving, or you're studying really hard and you're really, really trying, but realizations aren't coming. It's like you've got, you know, a blockhead and you know, hitting against the wall. So if any of these things are happening to you, it's because our initial approach is flawed. We've kind of misstepped somewhere, and this is the result of it. So the answer isn't to push harder. No. Actually, the answer is much easier and much nicer. So what we're going to have a look at is what's called the three attitudes, or the three faults to avoid as a student. So these three faulty attitudes that trip us up. And really, we don't even know that we've got them until we experience them and then go, oh, there it is. So we're going to talk about that. It's very common in the West. It's probably common anywhere, actually. We'll just do a little motivation, and then I just got a couple of slides, and hopefully you've got gallons of questions. The benefit of being able to get this one under our belts and recognize if we have any of these faults or missteps is that then, without pushing or without forcing, we will naturally enjoy our Buddhist study. So that's the thing, isn't it? There's a lot of study. In fact, enlightenment is called the path of no more learning, which means up until enlightenment, we're studying. As Alkeshi said, up until enlightenment, there's homework. And I'm like, oh, no, you're kidding me. I'm going to be like on the 10th Bhumi Bodhisattva path and I've still got homework. So how to enjoy it? How to enjoy our Buddhist study and practice? How to enjoy our problems? How to beat procrastination? How to relish discovering what's under that band-aid instead of covering it up and going, no, it's not there, it's not happening. How to actually relish looking underneath and seeing what's going on and then resolving it, you know, without guilt or anything like that. So let's have our little slide. So here we are. Be your own therapist. What an excellent title you guys have come up with, because that's what the Buddha said, isn't it? To be our own therapist. Lama Yeshe did say we've got to be strong to be on the Buddhist path. We have to get our strength up to be able to traverse the path. But the path is joyous. If it's not joyous, we're missing a puzzle piece. And hopefully this class today will be able to help with that. So let's think why we're here. Hopefully you're all comfortable and relaxed and got a nice spot to join us. We're all together here online on a Zoom class, literally joined together by pixels of light, by fiber optic cables, by light rays, by little particles and protons and everything, all radiant. It is light that's actually coming through the screen. So every time we think about light, we can remember emptiness. That's how we remember it. There, but by nature empty. And here we are together creating a really beneficial class, a really beneficial discussion together. So let's read our little motivation. What is the purpose of being alive today? It must be something more important than drinking coffee. Today, I'll develop bodhicitta, leading to the peaceful path of liberation and full awakening for the benefit of all beings. From this moment on, until I go to sleep, I shall stay aware of every action of my body, speech, and mind. Wherever possible, I shall try to help, and at the very least, I will not harm. So it's such a nice motivation, this one from Lamy Eshe, and it's really nice where it says, wherever possible, I should try to help. So that's our number one thing that we try and do. And then if we can't, then at the very least, non-harm. We refrain from harm minimization. So the 3 faults to abandon, because when we first embark on our Buddhist studies, we've got to fulfill the kind of the responsibilities from our side as a student before we then investigate the teacher or even investigate the path. From our side, we've got to get everything in order. And then if we do, then naturally the benefit will happen. And what's the benefit? Repairing our mind, healing the trauma. So the 3 faults to abandon are characterized by these 3 types of vessel, the 3 vessels or the 3 cups. So we've got an upside down vessel, a dirty vessel, and a leaky one, the cracked vessel. So let's start with the easy one, shall we? The upside down vessel. So it's a nice enough looking cup there, but it's upside down. So this is on the most basic level. Have you ever been to teachings and Rinpoche starts talking about emptiness and you just get overwhelmed by sleep and delirium and off you go, like bam, just like that? Or you've had a really long day at work, but you want to go to teaching. So you go to teachings and no matter what, you you fall asleep. So we've all had that and we've all struggled. That's the really basic one. So you're there, but the cup's upside down, not much gets in. People kind of think, oh, maybe if I'm asleep, magically it'll go into my mind and, I'll absorb it through osmosis or something. No, the cup's upside down. But where the merit is in the effort of going there. There's merit in that. And the effort of battling against sleep. Even if you lose the battle, you're going to win the war. That effort will purify the sleep. But just hoping that somehow by being at teachings and asleep, the teaching is still going in. We wish. But there's a more subtle way that we can read this, and it's the upside down cup is to do with pride, with having like a know-it-all attitude. And so if we have pride, I mean, the scary thing about pride is we don't know that we have it. And what pride does is it's like this upside down cup. It means nothing can go in, where we put a barrier up to learning just through pride. So I'll give you an example of this. In our Western culture, we have a real problem with what I'd kind of term materialistic arrogance. And I've heard this in a Venerable Robina teaching where Venerable Robina has been talking about the mind, and someone's asked a question and gone, well, we all know, this is the question. We all know that the mind is just a result of brain neurons firing and everything. So what about the blah 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 blah? And Venerable Robina is going, what do you mean we all know? Like, nobody knows this. Nobody knows that the mind is a result of the brain. That's a materialist idea with no evidence to back it up. But because we come from this materialistic culture, it's just accepted. actually with blind faith, with no scientific rigor whatsoever. So there's an arrogance in that of thinking that our own culture is naturally right. And so we don't necessarily even subscribe to that. It's just an inherited thing. It's just like we inherit it from our culture, materialistic arrogance. And what's the result? The result is we don't question. And so we miss the entire point of the Buddhist path, which is understanding the nature of the mind, and that the mind is not material. So the upside down cup can have this, other nuances to it. There can also be a bit of pride there with the upside down cup of confusing knowledge with wisdom, with lived experience. So thinking that because you know everything, you've got it sorted, and not understanding that that's intellectual knowledge, but it isn't wisdom, because only wisdom when we apply it. And as you know, we can be hungry for all the information in the world and like, yeah, give me something more meaty, more amazing, more esoteric to get my hands on. And the moment we start trying to apply it, then it's like, oh my God, give me something more simple. This is too hard. So all of this is associated with the upside down vessel. So any comments or questions or insights, stories about this one? Who's got one for me? Wave your hand or put your virtual hand up or put something in the chat. Has anyone got anything? Well, it either means that I'm very clear or clear as mud. Yeah, and I was thinking like that guy that came to Venerable Robina's class saying that, oh, well, we all know that, the mind's just a result of the brain. I think he was just there like dragged along as a family member. So, I don't think he was actually that open anyway. If you're reluctantly there. There's a couple of other times. So sometimes we have school students come for their study of religion class or whatever. And so some of them are just like really happy to be out having an excursion, and that's great. Others are actually really interested in Buddhism and have fantastic questions. And then there's the ones that are just reluctantly there. And so the ones that are reluctantly there, it's their curiosity doesn't even carry them through. Because they don't want to be there, they've shut down. And then the whole thing is not open to them anymore. And so they're in this really nice looking place and they can ask whatever they want, and they just don't take the opportunity. So they really miss out, the reluctantly there ones. Still no questions? Oh. Is there anyone here who's not fallen asleep in a teaching on emptiness?
Notice the no comments.
That's right. So just for fun, I'll tell you, there was one time when Lama Zopa Rinpoche came to Australia, and in one of those sessions, of course, within 5 minutes, we're there into emptiness. And I'd had enough sleep and everything like that, but I got delirious, so delirious with sleep. I became one of those people that does this, like backwards and forwards and about to go clonk into my desk. And the people behind me like putting their hands up so that I didn't fall over. Like I was just, it was so epic. It was such a struggle. And part of me was going, oh God, I hope I don't do something really stupid like start talking or something because I'm delirious and dreaming. I didn't know if I was dreaming words or if I was speaking words or even if I was speaking English. So I kind of basically had to sit on my hands and I would never forget this feeling of this epic moment by moment battle to just stay upright. And like, it seemed like this went on for hours. And I have no idea how long that teaching was. It probably was hours, actually. Now I kind of think of it, but it really did feel like hours. And I was so upset at the end of that teaching that I missed the whole thing. But like in my mind, I was like, I was determined. I'm gonna win. I'm not gonna succumb to this sleep. And so yeah, I lost that battle, completely lost that battle. But something shifted from that. And ever since then, when I've been in teachings, I'll get the deliriums will come over me and they will pass by. They've never got their handle on me again like that. And so I just know I've been able to kind of, it's almost like you shift into a lower gear. You've got the sleepiness at the top, or the thick-headed befuddlement, and then you just relax and go to a lower gear, go under the tiredness. And part of it is not being attached to the tiredness, that you go, oh yeah, that's okay, but you're not kind of grasping after the delirium of sleep. On a really instinctual level, you're not attached to that anymore. You go deeper to try and listen. And actually, it's been really beneficial for me, because I think that type of listening is different from academic listening, because you do go deeper and you're much more open, and you have to be relaxed and alert. And we're not used to having those two together. When we're relaxed, we usually fall asleep. We've associated relaxation and sleep together so well that we can't actually relax when our mind is alert. And the only way that we can be alert and focused is to like hype ourselves up. So I'm just saying this to give you some hope that if you ever go through your own epic battle, it's worth it. And you can become free of that. So thank goodness. So now I just go through, there's a little process in the first 20 minutes or half an hour, I'm gonna sleepy, whatever, and then beauty. And now we're there for the long haul, and I'm right there. So that's the upside down vessel. And part of that, the symbolism of that is when you enter a gompa, or a meditation hall, you don't wear a hat, you take your hat off. And that's why, because a hat, it's like a lid, so it's like you take the lid off. Also, a hat shows status and everything, and so it's to not have a crown or a hat to show that you're better than Buddha, so you take your hat off. But so if it's winter and you're going into the gompa and you've got your beanie on, and you take your beanie off, and you can think, aha, open-minded. When you do prostrations, you think, great, open-minded. And the best way to be open-minded is to encourage your curiosity. To just be so when we're curious, we're relaxed and we're alert, aren't we? That's the thing about curiosity that's so nice. And just be sincere and curious, and that will carry you through. The next one, the big one actually, is the dirty vessel. And so that is when we bring our own emotional baggage with us to the teachings, and we don't realize that's what we're doing. And we bring our own cultural assumptions with us. And so that dirty in there, as we can see, if we've got a dirty vessel like this and we put in our delicious morning coffee into that, it's going to taste disgusting. Or if you have tea every morning, if you pour tea into that, are you ever going to get the delicious flavor of the tea? Impossible. So if we have difficulty in teachings, it's because we're contaminating them somehow with our emotional and cultural baggage. And the thing is that we don't know that we're doing it. And this is what's tricky. And if we find out, we kind of panic and try and hide it. So this is like, we don't want to look under the Band-Aid. Oh, I don't want to look, because somehow we think, oh, you know, it's bad or embarrassing or taboo or any of those things. The worst thing that can contaminate our Buddhist study is the worldly concerns, is worries about fame and status, about money, about getting materialistic, spiritual materialism. What can I get here? It's all about me. All of these worldly things. I mean, there's a million ways that it can be contaminated. I'll give you some shocking examples. So a while ago, there was a guy that was coming to my overcoming disturbing emotions class, and he sat at the back and he was really attentive for the whole class, couple of classes, but he never asked any questions. Anyway, at the end of about the third class or something, he came up to me and went, Miffi, you know, you're a great presenter. We could put you on video, on film, and put it online. It'll be brilliant. It'll be fantastic. I'm like, oh, okay. You know, this is before COVID and before Zoom. And you know, we'd always thought, oh, one day we're going to go online. Well, that happened a lot sooner than we expected. So then he said, oh, but all you have to do is pay $1,000 and then we'll be able to video it and we'll host it on our site and everything, and you'll be able to make pots of money. And I'm like, oh, okay. So normally people sponsor us, sir. Would you like to sponsor our $1,000? Because, you know, our center is run entirely on donations. Anyway, he was a bit standoffish about this, and then he never came back. And so then I realized, the whole time that he was there attentive at my class was because he was setting up the framing in his mind for the video and thinking about how to monetize it. I mean, what a loss. And, you know, it was a class on dealing with emotions. Like, who's going to go wrong with that? And he didn't even hear any of it. So that's a real contamination, really coarse one, contaminating with worldly concerns. And someone else was coming to Language Time Center, a guy, because he kind of figured out that the main demographic at Buddhist centers are women. And so what a fantastic place to pick up girls. Anyway, of course, he quickly realized that the girls were just far too intelligent for him. It didn't work. But, you know, so there, yeah, sure, you get this tiny little benefit, but what, you know, hardly anything. But there are other ways that we contaminate the teachings without knowing it. And it's when we try and correlate a Western concept or our Judeo-Christian heritage with the Buddhist concept, and they don't match. It's like a square peg in a round hole. There are some things that do correlate, and there are some things that absolutely do not. And if we are unclear of that, we don't know when we're contaminating it. So one of them says, when we first hear teachings on karma, and have you ever had that thought come up, oh, but that's not fair. How is it fair that a little innocent baby dies? Has anyone, yeah, so Alicia, has anyone else had that thought come up? That's not fair? Or, you know, one of Venerable Robina's great titles, why do bad things happen to good people? So this is the thing why we've got to relish looking under the Band-Aid, because you've got to catch that thought, oh, that's not fair, and see it for what it is, which is our Judeo-Christian heritage being put onto teachings of karma and contaminating it. Because underneath this thought of it's not fair, if we unpack that, it's the assumption that someone is judging and determining. Like Alicia, like you said, it's a punishment. So a punishment comes from someone, or it's a judgment. So if we catch ourselves saying it's not fair, then we know we've got this built into our psyche somehow, this idea that someone is judging and determining and organizing a reward or a punishment, and we don't think it's fair. But if you remember, Venerable Thupten Chodron, she gave this fantastic example. When a flower grows from a seed, it's not a reward of the flower. It's not a punishment of the flower. It's just a natural cause and effect. So we might anthropomorphize it and go, oh, it's a reward, but we're adding something extra on there, an extra layer. What a beautiful flower has come to bless us, or whatever it is. But actually, if there's a seed and there's the conditions, it's just going to happen. The flower's going to grow. The flower can't decide not to. It's just cause and effect, not a reward, not a punishment. So it's way more basic than that. And so karma is internal cause and effect. It's cause and effect, how it operates in our mind. So there is no punishment or reward there. It's actually much more like a mathematical equation. This plus this equals this. There's no punishment or reward there. It's just how it works. So our task is to catch that thought, it's not fair, and hold it enough to analyze it and see, and that's like washing out the garbage from the cup. And actually go, wow, there's this. And how come I'm saying this is because I was brought up a Buddhist, and yet I have a Judeo-Christian mindset in there somewhere as well, just from our culture. Even though I know nothing about Christianity, and I was brought up a Buddhist from the age of like 5. So it's in there. And not only that, if that's in there, then the whole materialist mindset is in there as well, contaminating things. So we've got to be able to see it and wash it out. And then, of course, if we think about purification, then even with purification, it all gets contaminated up with guilt and shame, doesn't it? With judgment and guilt and shame. So if we think about purifying, we're also experiencing feelings of guilt and shame too, mixed up in there. Whereas again, that's a whole nother layer that doesn't have to be there, that we can get rid of, because there's no guilt, there's no shame. In fact, part of the purification is to just to not seek to hide our faults. If we don't hide our faults, then it's not even a complete downfall. It's not even a complete negativity. We can even do the negativity, but if we are open about it, we don't seek to hide it from ourselves, from others, or from the Buddha, it's not even a complete action. So, we've got the guilt and the shame and the judgment. I've done a bad thing, therefore I'm a bad person. That's how it goes. And we conflate that with the need for purification in Buddhism. And so then you can do a lot of purification and still feel very down about yourself. Why? Because we haven't washed that bit out. What else? There's some other things, cultural, like, if we have had a difficult childhood and a distrust of priests, had bad experiences with figures of authority, and we come across the teachings of guru devotion in Buddhism, that's going to color it, isn't it? And we might panic and go, well, I'm not going to devote myself to a guru and see them as the Buddha. That's really dangerous. But it's because we've taken all of that background experience of blind faith and blind devotion and put it onto the Buddhist teachings. And nowhere does it say blind faith and blind devotion. And in fact, guru devotion goes from respect for the teacher up to when you get into the Mahayana path and then the Tantra path, and you're a being of highest capacity with a bodhicitta motivation, only then do you see the Guru as the Buddha. But, you know, who's ever paid attention to that before they got into trouble? So comments or questions about this? Has it sparked anything in you, this the kind of the cultural baggage that we take with us? Don't be shy. There's no taboos.
Yeah, Miffi, I would just say that I've definitely experienced that. It's hard to. I had a Christian upbringing, and sometimes I find it's helpful to kind of find the parallels, I guess, in the Buddhist teachings with the Christian teachings I experienced when I was younger. But yeah, sometimes it like you say, you don't even realize the biases and the beliefs that you are carrying, and how that influences your perception of what you're hearing, and it can be hard to kind of see them clearly and unpack them. Yeah,
so actually you've just brought up something that Sergio has just gone, that also said in the chat, of how does one realize that they're hiding their feelings. So this is the thing, it's really hard to notice that we have a dirty cup. So what we've got to recognize is when the symptoms arise. So the symptoms are things like if our Buddhist study is making us more miserable or more uptight. That's not the fault of the Buddhism. That's the fault of our approach. So that's the symptom. That's like when you have post-traumatic stress disorder or post-traumatic stress response. That's the indication something has gone wrong. Something's awry. And so now, what was the trauma? What actually caused it? So instead of going to go calm down, everything's going to be okay. No. We've got to actually look at, well, what's caused it. So if our relationships are getting more difficult when we've become a Buddhist, if we find that we're having more arguments with people, if we're getting more impatient, if we don't enjoy our study anymore, and if we feel like, oh no, I really don't want to go to teachings today, that's all indications that somewhere along the line we've dirtied the cup, or the cup's dirty and we haven't cleaned it, actually, is more like it, because we all come with a dirty cup. So again, instead of getting guilty about those feelings, instead of getting guilty about, oh no, I'm one of those people that procrastinates about going to teachings, and going, oh no, I'm just too busy, what I'm doing is really important, or, you know, instead of hiding it away, just recognize it and go, this is evidence that something's gone awry. If I'm getting more miserable or more uptight, recognize it. I'm miserable or I'm uptight. Something's gone awry. I'm missing something here. So again, without getting all judgmental on yourself, this is a symptom. Any unhappiness is a symptom. What's it a symptom of? Something's gone wrong. Pretty much to do with afflictive emotions and being propelled by karma. And so, you know, then slowly we just look, well, what are my assumptions? What am I assuming here? And I found actually journaling is really helpful for this, because you catch those thoughts, like the it's not fair thought, and it takes real effort to capture it into words and put it down. It takes a lot of effort. But in doing that, it's like you speak it out, you speak the truth, and then you can see it. And then it reveals itself and you can see, right, that's what I've been missing, you know, or so capturing those thoughts that we normally try and hide, that's where the effort's got to come in. And so part of that, how we can do it, is to get really clear on Buddhist definitions. So when you hear the word karma, or when you hear the word attachment, to actually go and find the longest definition you can of it and write it down, and then deconstruct, unpack it. because everything's in the definitions. They're absolutely brilliant. Yes, they are a bit dry, but they're like a life raft. You hold on to them because everything that you need to be able to solve it is in there in the definition. So I just found this in my own kind of meanderings around the philosophical world, that like I have a great love of Nietzsche and of postmodernist readings of Nietzsche. I just laugh. I'm so inspired by his writings, and he's so out there and so radical and incredibly naughty and a real punk, really. And Nietzsche's writings on the eternal return are very interesting because there's a lot of correlations with Buddhist thought. But what I found was, even though I was so inspired by Nietzsche, I would find myself going back to the Buddhist definitions just to check, just to put things into context. And so what I found, actually, what I was doing was reading Nietzsche from a Buddhist point of view. And then it made sense. But if you didn't read Nietzsche from a Buddhist point of view, you could get into a lot of difficulties. So then I started realizing, wow, these definitions, I keep coming back to them again and again and again, although I'd never sit down and read definitions for fun. No way. But that's what we need. So yes, the great German, Austrian, not sure, that part of the world philosopher. And then Deleuze and Guattari's readings on Nietzsche, which is even better. So if you want to start with Nietzsche, start with Twilight of the Idols. That's pretty fun. Anyway, so Buddhist definitions, they're really good, and try and get quite a few, and you'll find that you pull one thread and the whole jumper comes along with it. The whole scarf comes along by just pulling one thread. And with the lamb rim, you pull one little thread and the whole lamb rim comes with it. So there's incredible richness there. If you get a definition, you find then you've got to get definitions of what each word in that definition mean. And then by the time you've unpacked that, you would have cleaned the cup. And then, of course, the other thing is just to adjust our motivation. So that goes back to, why am I here? Well, it's not just for short-term benefit or gain, or not just to have a nice evening, but it's an investment in ourselves as a human being to get the very most that we can out of this human life. So it's going to take some effort. And then that kind of gives us this incentive to keep going. So yeah, reading Nietzsche from a Buddhist point of view, this is what I found. Like you can read Buddhism from a Buddhist point of Christianity from a Buddhist point of view, Nietzsche from a Buddhist point of view, feminism from a Buddhist point of view. And what I find is then you get the best out of feminism or Christianity or a Nietzsche. But and this interesting thing happened. For instance, we had a workshop here a couple of years ago of Jesus and the Buddha. And so we had quite a few Christians come along and quite a few Buddhist Christians, I suppose. We had a liberal Catholic priest come who'd been coming to Buddhist teachings for years and years, but he was a Christian, a whole range of people, and feedback sheets at the end. And the weirdest thing happened. The Buddhists that were there for that weekend were so inspired by the Christian teachings, by the correlations, especially the teachings on thought transformation, on turning the other cheek, the teachings on altruism, especially the teachings from Jesus, was really incredibly inspiring. And they had this whole new respect for the teachings of Christianity. And in the feedback sheets, the Christians that came, they felt completely intimidated and ostracized and defensive about having to defend their faith. I'm like, wow, how did that happen? So I thought, oh, this is like, if you're a Buddhist and you read anything from the point of view of Buddhism, you get the wisdom of whatever that thing is, and it just enhances your wisdom. But if you come from a discipline where it's based on blind faith, and then you question things, or you have a different worldview, your whole worldview will shake. And so then it's better to actually stay away, because are you going to lose your faith? I mean, it can be that dramatic. Or you get really intimidated and defensive with anybody else with a different worldview. And why? Because there isn't the confidence in your own worldview. So, yes, I found the most benefit that you can get is reading everything from a Buddhist point of view in that really big context, understanding of mind, understanding of internal cause and effect, understanding of the two truths, conventional truth, ultimate truth, and how they relate, because then you can read science from the point of view of Buddhism, especially quantum physics and, neuroscience and all of that from the point of view of the two truths, and you can get a whole lot more out of it than the scientists. Yeah, what's some other things? Okay. And the very last one, because we're running out of time. How can I run out of time when I've just got one slide? The cracked vessel. Oh, so this is easy, isn't it? So in one ear, out the other, into the cup, and out it goes. So what's this one? This is where we listen, we're enthused, we're like, wow, that was great. And then someone, I went to teachings last night with Geshe, it was fantastic. Oh, what did he talk about? Oh, I don't know, something about compassion. Oh, hang my head in shame. So this is where we listen, but we don't study. So we don't retain anything. So we like that, just basic study things. If within the 40 minutes after the teaching you review, it goes from your short-term, into medium-term memory. You review again the next day, goes into your long-term memory. It's that simple. If you just enjoy it and you don't review, you'll lose it. So that's on the academic side of things. But the downfalls of this, of being a cracked vessel, is that even though we have this richness of Buddhist psychology to draw on that can help us in every single situation, when we're in the throes of the situation, we've forgotten what to do. In fact, when we're in the throes of the emergency, it doesn't even occur to us to use our Buddhist wisdom because we're just overwhelmed. So all of this at our fingertips, how to not just deal with a problem, but alleviate the whole cause of every single problem forever. One little problem comes up and we lose it. We don't know what to do. It's like, oh, quick, what do I do? It's like, oh, well, you know what you should do, but it's not our default. So how do we make our Buddhist study our default? How do we actually draw on Buddhist wisdom when we need it? It's got to be through study, through retaining the information. So Eddie told me this really funny thing the other day, that Tibetans will just, it's just a saying. So Tibetans will study the Dharma when they get sick, when things are going wrong, especially, when they get ill. That's when Tibetans will dive into Dharma practice. Westerners, we dive into Dharma practice when things are going well. And when things go wrong, then we drop it like a hot potato. When we get sick, our go-to isn't refuge and bodhicitta. Our go-to is a hospital or a diagnosis or someone to blame or alcohol or sleep or whatever it is. Our go-to isn't Dharma. We're like fair weather Buddhists. We're just there when it's nice. But when the emergency happens, What's our default? There are some Western Buddhists, and I know we've got students like this where they've been in a car accident and they find themselves in hospital, and their first thought is, oh wow, thank goodness I've lived the best life I can and I can die without regret. And that is their first thought. Or they've thought, at least I've loved my family, I've loved them well, it's okay. Or they think of Rinpoche, or they think, I'm so lucky because I'm alive and there's all these other people in the hospital that are suffering worse than me. So their default is the Dharma. But where does that come from? From really integrating it. So it's like, when the emergency happens, when the argument happens, when the person abuses you, what do you fall back on? And what we've got to aim for is to fall back on the Dharma instinctually, rather than like, oh no, I'm a bit too stressed for that now. So the leaky cup, yeah. Two things to that: effort in reviewing, and then always try and apply it to our own life. So again, that's getting away from the academic thing, which can be, really, really juicy and interesting. But all the time, you've got to get this habit in your mind to go, and how do I put that into practice? It's like, yeah, wisdom realizing emptiness, but what about applied wisdom realizing emptiness? Or everything's dependent. Yeah, but what about applied dependent arising? What does that mean in my day-to-day life? Or for the benefit of all sentient beings, what about that applied bodhicitta, putting it into action? So that means for the benefit of all sentient beings, starting with the ones living in the same house as me. Then you get all the richness of it. Comments, questions? Got a little slide here. Then what to do? This really lovely picture of Bodhisattva Manjushri. So just some general handy hints that I've put together. Nothing too profound, but hopefully useful. They've helped me. Remember to enjoy your study. Savor the journey. So if you're a real amazing homework person, and you do your books out all perfectly, dot point and everything, think of that as an offering to the Buddha. All of your notes and everything, it's an offering. And then that way you'll have the joy of having everything neatly and organized without getting tight about it. If you're a bit haphazard, like me, or a bit of a procrastinator, a bit of a perfectionist, that stops me studying. So what I do is I take a more relaxed approach, and I go, I'm just going to dip into this book just somewhere, and at the same time I'm going to dip into that book, and at least I'm dipping into something. And then the moment you're in, then it's okay. So yeah, it's not the best way to study, but it's better than not doing it. So whichever way that we actually enjoy it, and it's the thing that we really want to do, and we take our time and we tell stories about it, and we discuss with people about it. So that's really different from cramming academically, isn't it? It's really different attitude. Enjoy it. Take your Buddhist books to the beach. Have a swim, have a sleep, and then dip into some wisdom realizing emptiness whilst looking at the beach, or some samsara and nirvana whilst looking at the ocean. How amazing is that? The other thing is, don't try and understand it all at once. So when you go to teachings, they are really profound. and not like university. So I kind of went round the opposite way. I went to all these teachings with Lama Yeshe and Lama Zopa Rinpoche and other lamas as a child, and then grew up and went to uni and approached the university lectures in the same way, writing down every single word. And then I realized this is like 2 hours, and 1 hour 45 minutes of it was just fluff, was just filling, just rubbish. I didn't have to write down every word after all. So then, you know, if you come from an academic side of things and you go to a Buddhist teaching and then there's all this stuff in there, you could be tempted to think you're supposed to understand everything in that lecture that day. No, this is just imprints and just getting started, and it's to go back to again and again. So not only don't try and understand everything all at once, actually just relax your mind and listen out for the one gold nugget, the one thing that's going to go, that's the thing. That's the jewel for me tonight. I've found it. And listen out until you hear it. And take that one with full awareness, and all the rest, let it enter into your mind as imprints. Practicing slogans. This is from 7-point mind training, or as your mother used to say, use your words. So this means to change our inner dialogue, so that when we're thinking about things or talking, to be very aware of what words we're using, because how we put things into sentences changes how we think about them. So even, for instance, when you're thinking, I'm really depressed today, so change it to I'm undergoing depression, or I'm experiencing depression, but I'm not going to let it upset me. And you can even go further, and you can go, I'm a budding bodhisattva undergoing depression for the benefit of others. Embracing depression for the benefit of others. In fact, I'm a budding Buddha embracing depression for the benefit of others. See how changing the words changes the world. So make sure that our inner dialogue has really correct or better ways of framing things. Apply the teachings to our situation. Try and, applied teachings, and also to think about how does that apply to me before you think about, so-and-so should really hear this. So apply it to oneself first before telling somebody else they should act better. And last one, Socratic questioning and following up. So this is like really using our analysis and our reasoning, playing the devil's advocate, posing different scenarios and seeing what happens. It's a great way to study, like stories. And that way you'll progress. So we're just about finished our time. Questions, comments? Hope this helps. What to do about the three faulty vessels and what we can do about it. Brian, you look so dapper. I see you've dressed for class. Okay, well, let's dedicate our merits then. I have the little dedication. So we can think everything that we've talked about, may it be helpful for our Dharma journey, and may we relish our Dharma journey and enjoy it. Take a moment to think, what's the one thing that stood out today? What's the thing that I went, yeah, that's happened to me? And what's one thing that you're excited about changing? And then let's dedicate. Due to all the merits of the 3 times accumulated by me and by others, merely by seeing, hearing, remembering, touching, or talking to me, may any being be freed in that very second from all their sufferings, diseases, spirit harms, negative karmas, and obscurations, and abide in the peerless happiness of full enlightenment forever. So Brian, this can be in particular for off you go to work. This is really excellent, and I'll let you in on a little thing that whenever I get on a plane, because I'm both excited and terrified of planes, you know. And so what I imagine is the 21 Taras, and I've got 10 Taras on one wing of the plane, all with their legs swinging, and 10 Taras on the other leg of the plane, you know, and they're all on their lotus flowers, and their robes are wafting in the wind. And I've got Arya Tara on the nose of the plane with a cowboy hat going, yeah. And Tara flies the plane. And everyone's blessed. So go and have a nice party, Tara party, and you know, do your little stealth Dharma thing, and see you soon. And everybody, thank you for coming along. And now when we meet next week, you must come with some questions for me, all right? Because otherwise I'm not fulfilling my my brief, which is a discussion. So come along with some questions, and we'll have a discussion. Thank you so much for coming.